I'd like to welcome everyone to the Burke County Board of Commissioners organizational meeting. I have a good crowd here today. This Monday, December 5th, 2022 at 2 p.m. Anybody that wishes to speak, please make sure the red light is on at the lectern. Madam Clerk, we have all three current commissioners in attendance, along with our finance officer, county finance officer, our county attorney, and our county manager, ma'am. I would remind everybody to please silence your mobile devices. And at this point, I would ask Dr. Dave Kistler from Hope Ministries International to lead us in the invocation, please, sir.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for the occasion that brings us together today. And Lord, we're reminded in your word in the book of Romans chapter number 13 that those who serve in elected office are actually your ministers, literally your servants. And so, Father, those that are going to be sworn in today, as well as those that are already commissioners, Lord, I pray they would understand their responsibility before you, because your word says that they are your ministers and they're your ministers for good. So, Father, I pray you would help as they make decisions that will affect this county, that, Lord, they might first and foremost please you as they do the people's business. Lord, I'm also reminded in 1789 at the Constitutional Convention, Lord, when debate and division reigned, and Benjamin Franklin, the oldest delegate, stood to his feet and made that phenomenal statement, if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without your notice, is it probable that a nation can rise without your aid? And then he said, I move that we pray. And Lord, they dismissed that assembly, and pray they did. And when they reconvened, the end result was the greatest document, according to one British Prime Minister, ever to come from the pen of man, the Bible being the only exception. And that's the United States Constitution. And Lord, I pray that the same type of wisdom would be sought within this room, Lord, when disagreements occur. And Lord, debate becomes perhaps heated. Father, I pray pause would take place. And Lord, those on this commission would seek your wisdom, your guidance, Lord, your understanding as they make decisions. Father, I pray that in all things you might be exalted through what takes place, not just today, but in the days that lie ahead. And for all of those who represent you in this place, Father, again, I would ask that they would understand their responsibility before you first and foremost. And Father, for all this, we'll give you praise, thanksgiving, glory, and honor. For it's in the name that is above every name, the name of Jesus, that we do pray. Amen.
Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. This time, folks, we'll have the presentation of colors by the Sheriff's Color Guard, and they will also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. Now for the fun stuff, oaths of office. So I would ask that the Honorable Judge Clifton H. Smith please come forward.
We'll begin with Randy Burns. Oaths have long been a part of our country, our state and federal government, all involve oaths for those holding positions of trust. And back in the beginning of our country, George Washington began by taking the oath of office on a Bible in front of a judge, and we'll do the same today. If you'll place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. I state your name.
I, Randall Burns,
Do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities
and authorities
which are
which are
or may be established
or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
and that I will
and that I will
endeavor to support,
endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
of said state,
of said state,
not inconsistent with
not inconsistent with
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I state your
I,
name,
Randall Burns,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties
the duties
of my office as
of my office as
a county commissioner.
a county commissioner.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
You put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right. I, Carl Philip Smith,
I, Carl Philip Smith,
do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities
and authorities
which are
which are
or may be established
or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof.
and that I will endeavor to support,
I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
of said state,
of said state,
not inconsistent with
not inconsistent with
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I,
I,
state your name,
Carl Philip Smith,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of my office
of my office
as a county commissioner.
as a county commissioner.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I state your name,
I, Carl Philip Smith,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will well and truly
that I will well and truly
execute the duties
execute the duties
of the office
of the office
of county commissioner
of county commissioner
according to the best of my skill
according to the best of my skill
and ability,
and ability,
according to law.
according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
So-
Gentlemen, y'all no longer need to sit in the audience. Y'all are now officially sworn in commissioners. Absolutely, and I want to give each of you an opportunity to say a few words, so I'll start with Commissioner Burns.
I first just want to say I'm kind of in awe of how many of you folks come out tonight for this, and I'm very deeply appreciative. And I look forward to getting busy for the citizens of Burke County, our taxpayers. Tonight, I want to acknowledge my wife and my granddaughter who came with me tonight, Crystal and Dallas. Dallas was the best Bible holder I think I have ever seen, so she did a really good job. Thank you all. Thank you, commissioners. I look forward to the work ahead, and let's get started. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
I want to thank everybody that showed up today. You folks are true friends, and some of our true friends couldn't be here today, and I appreciate them too, but it takes effort to come out and do this. I want to give a special thanks to Reverend Dave Kistler, Judge Clifton Smith, the voters and citizens of Burke County that had enough faith in me to vote for me and Mr. Burns to sit up here. I'd especially like to thank my wife Penny and son Garrett and Andrew for always sticking beside me for everything I do, whether it's good or stupid. She's always there beside them, and I love her to death. I hope you'll keep me in your thoughts and prayers, and that I will always do God's will, number one, and that I'll always remember that I work for you, the taxpayer. I hope I never forget that, and if I do, I hope you will remind me. Give me a phone call or come see me or whatever. It's my honor to serve the people of Burke County, and you fine folks sitting out there, and again, I thank you, and thank you to my fellow commissioners too. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on to item number 5, organization of the board, election of chairman for 2023. At this time, I'll open the floor for nominations.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put in for a nomination of Scott Mulwee.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other nominations from the floor?
Chairman, I move nominations closed and you be elected by acclamation.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. We'll move on to election of vice chairman for 2023. I'll now open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Mr. Jeff Britton for vice chair.
Thank you, sir. Now, are there any other nominations? If
Sure.
not, I'll close the floor for nominations.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we elect Vice Chairman Britton by acclamation.
Okay. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. Appointment of county attorney presented, appointment of county attorney. I will now open the floor for nominations for county attorney.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Mr. James Reed Simpson.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other nominations from the floor? There being none, I'll close the floor for nominations.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we elect the county attorney by acclamation.
All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That's 5-0, Madam Clerk. Appointment of the clerk to the board.
Mr. Chairman, it is with my distinct honor and pleasure to nominate the best clerk in the state of North Carolina, Ms. Cadron.
Absolutely. Are there any other nominations from the floor? If not, I'll close the floor for nominations.
Mr. Chairman, I move we elect Kay by acclamation.
All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. It's 5-0. And that brings us to appointment of tax attorney. I'll open the floor for nominations for tax attorney.
Mr. Chairman, I move we Kanye Law Firm. I'm so sorry, that we nominate Colonier Law Firm for our tax attorneys.
All right, gentlemen, are there any other nominations from the floor? If not, I'll close the floor for nominations.
Move that we elect by acclamation, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. It is 5-0, Madam Clerk. And at this time, I'm going to take a point of privilege, and I don't know if many of you know, the North Carolina Dogwood Award was awarded by our Attorney General Josh Steen. I don't want to butcher that, but Josh Stein, and I want to read this to you. Our Attorney General presents this award of appreciation to recognize the contributions of the Honorable Johnny Carswell of Burke County to the state of North Carolina for his extraordinary demonstration of excellence, dedication, and creativity in pursuing community solutions to our state's most pressing issues in alignment with the North Carolina Department of Justice's mission of protecting the people of North Carolina, signed November 22nd, 2022. And my good friend, Commissioner Carswell, went and received this in person. So I just want to say on behalf of the board, we're proud of you to get this recognition. And as you know, gentlemen, there's food over there, and we've got several more meetings after this, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, sir. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Meeting is adjourned. And everyone, please have some snacks and some food and enjoy yourself. for Monday, December 5th at 2022, 3 p.m. Madam Clerk, we have all 5 commissioners in attendance, and our county finance officer, our county attorney, and our county manager, ma'am. I would remind everyone to please silence their mobile devices, and I would remind all speakers to activate the microphone at the lectern before speaking if you come up front, so those viewing on YouTube can hear what you have to say. All right, gentlemen. We'll move on to approval of the agenda. Gentlemen, this was previously submitted. What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. That'll move us
Mr.
to.
Chairman, I do apologize. Does that include the addition of the resolution appointing a plat review officer for the city of Morganton?
That does include that, Mr.
Does
Chairman.
include that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the clarification, Madam Clerk. Perfect. And then now we'll move on to presentations. And once again, Madam Clerk, Pet of the Month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request for Animal Services to present the dog and cat of the month. Animal Services is closed on Monday, so I am filling in for them today.
Any questions or comments for Kate? Kate, how are we on population?
I haven't heard this weekend, but we're always full. Matter of fact, I have a new shelter pup. So, yeah,
Wow.
her name's Shelby.
Shelby?
Shelby, yep.
That's a great name.
Yeah, she's we think a Beagle boxer mix, but she's a brown dog.
Brown dog?
She's a brown
Perfect.
dog.
Brown pound dog.
Yep, she's a brown pound dog.
Okay, nothing beats those.
Sweet as she can be.
That's awesome. Well, for those that don't know, it used to be more seasonal when we get so packed at the shelter, but now it's 100% of the time. We're always at capacity.
Yes, sadly.
Yeah. All right, any other questions or comments, gentlemen? If not, thank you, Madam Clerk. This will bring us to item number 2, presentation F3ST recognition of Johnny Carswell. Gentlemen, as far as Pet of the Month, without objection, that's going to remain on the agenda. And for Madam Clerk, are you handling number 2 as well?
I am. This is, I'm presenting on behalf of Beth Hiley, the F3ST, which stands for Friends of the Fonta Flora State Trail. She could not be here today, but she would like to be here at the regular meeting to recognize Commissioner Carswell for his service as a founding member of the F3ST board.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And then item number 3, while you're standing up there. Without objection, this item will remain on the agenda, gentlemen. And that'll move us to item number 3, recognition of Mabel Lohman's 47 years of public service.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to honor Mabel Lohman, the former clerk of court, for her 47 years of public service. And so we'll have something special for her on that night, and she will be here with us on the 20th.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, questions, comments? Well, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Item number 4 under presentation, Finance FY 21-22 Audit. This will be presented by Margaret Pierce, our Deputy County Manager / Finance Director.
Good afternoon and welcome, Commissioners. The auditors were unable to be here today, but they will be here at the December 20th meeting to give you a presentation on our audit. We did have a clean opinion and modifieds. We are very proud of that once again to have it. We will be submitting for the national award again this year and hopefully receive that. A couple of highlights are on page 5 that I wanted to point out to you, that our assets and deferred outflows exceeded liabilities and deferred inflows by approximately $73 million. And our unassigned general fund balance is just over $30 million, which is 32% of general fund expenditures, which is right in line. We should be somewhere between 30 and 35%. We have finally hit that mark where we've been struggling for years to get there. So what that means is we have approximately 4 months' working capital on hand. So it's not a significant excess, just enough to get us by if something catastrophic happened and we need to make bills for a few months. Other than that, I'll leave your questions for the auditors unless you have something you need me to look at now.
Thank you, Margaret. Gentlemen, any questions, comments for Margaret at this time? If, thank you very
Thank you.
much. All right, gentlemen, we'll move on to scheduled public hearings. Item number 4, community development resolutions to withdraw PARTF and STBG DA grants.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, new and old. Nice to work with you all. We're asking that we formally dissolve the Fauna Flora Trail project that was going to be using Part F funds and also Surface Transportation Block Grant direct attributable grants. They were picked up about 2016 or so. And a lot of work was done to kind of get some things started on. This is the area of Powerhouse Road, Cobb Avenue, and for a couple of reasons, several things just couldn't work. Most of it is North Powerhouse Road has very little right-of-way, and the parts up there in the middle of this map, the right-of-way is so narrow, and the cost of construction would be so prohibitive that we had a lot of difficulty getting the type of trail we wanted to fit in that footprint. So that some of that Surface Transportation Block Grant funds were expended. We're not able to get that money back, and that's why there's a budget request as part of this item today. So this is a hearing, and that's part of the formal closing of the Part F, and we'll do the same for the other grant. And then this will help us move along, and that's what this whole public hearing is about.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, any questions, comments for Alan at this time?
Alan, what's the future? I understand that, we had some issues of trying to get something there now. Are we going to look in the future trying to put something there, or is that just totally out of the picture for that particular north section?
Well, we reach Harris Wisnet. That's where we're at today. We kind of get to that point on this end, on the eastern end. So I just want to try to take a fresh look and maybe start over with how that alignment might work. And part of it's me getting out on the ground, but also getting a trail planner in place. And that's what we're talking about. But I think there's another option, and we'll just keep working on it until we have an option. That's how I feel about it.
Several options are still out there that may be viable. Okay.
I hope so. And
Okay,
also,
okay.
closing out the Part F grant allows us in the future to reapply if we find a good candidate, a good project candidate. So we're in good standing with Part F by doing the proper process of closing out.
So why are we taking money out of the general fund right now?
Because the STDA direct attributable grant, it did expend money. It did expend money on research, survey work, and engineering for that north Powerhouse section. And it was deemed to be just too challenging to really make it fit through there. I know if you've driven through Powerhouse Road, you know how tight that profile is of the road. And we just weren't able to make that happen.
So this is a payback, right?
Payback, yes, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Alan, is there any part of this that you think will be usable? I guess what I'm asking is $273,887. How much of that is physical work we've done that we may be able to capitalize on, or are we just at a fresh new start?
Because it was focused on that section of road, the North Powerhouse section as it heads up, I don't think it has a lot of help. It's not a lot of help to the trail, I'll say that. But we probably have more survey data than we used to have. I know we're not in the road business, but sometimes data is a good thing. And I just think we have to head in another direction, literally head down the road the other way and maybe come down 126 and then try to find a way to fit in to wrap the bottom half of the lake. That's
Did this include any easements, or was it all labor?
That part was a Kimley Horn contract for research and engineering, and that was their billables up to today's date. Basically, we're done. You know, we're not spending any more money, of course, but, and there's a little bit of that Part F funds, which was survey work, and trying to get us to a point where we had easements and purchase to make that grant keep going, but that, for many reasons, that fell apart, so. Hate to bring bad news, especially on the folks' first meeting.
So the 273,000, most of that is for survey work, or is it a combination of other things?
Combination, sir, combination.
So you feel like the data that we receive from that compensates for some of that money?
Yeah, a lot of survey engineering analysis on the part of Kimley Horn when they were
All right, thanks,
working
sir.
on that. Yeah.
Gentlemen, any other questions or comments for Alan? Alan, just for general public's knowledge, that section that we're talking about, what length is that?
It was about 1.5 miles through there on the south end. Yeah, we're still working it out. We're still working pieces of it. We have that Harris-Wisnet trailhead. We want to still make that happen early next year. So we've maybe have to do a few things with DOT to kind of work within their right of way on Harris-Wisnet, and that's for a trailhead for about 10 parking spaces. It's not a big tract of land, but we'll go from there and figure out what we do next to keep the trail moving.
When is that trailhead, do you foresee that being open?
I hope it'll be open this summer.
This summer?
Summer next. Yeah.
I'd be surprised if it wasn't. It's not a big,
It's not a very big thing. I was looking at the paperwork today, and I've got to do we have to do an encroachment with the DOT because we're going to be having to work within their road right of way. We'll need some permission to do that, like an MOU with them to kind of put parking right in that little corner. So it's not a big piece of land that's unencumbered.
and it's kind of an odd shape too, so I'm glad we got it, but it's just
Yeah.
we got it very inexpensively from what I recall, but and it's much needed because we stay packed up there, so sooner
right.
the better. Absolutely. Any other questions or comments for Alan? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Thank you, Alan. This will bring us to the consent agenda. Item number 1, Burke County Public Schools, presentation of financial data for the period ending September 30th, 2022, presented by our friend Keith Lawson, Burke County Public Schools Finance Officer. How are you, sir?
Good afternoon, new commissioners and seasoned commissioners. Alas, I'm here to present the first quarter results of 22-23 of Burke County Public Schools. I'll draw your attention to the first 2 columns in the table on the screen. Those are just for comparative purposes. Our previous year's total annual revenues versus our current forecast. More specifically, the next 2 columns under the September year-to-date heading. Previous year, state funds, at this point in time, we were at $17.8 million in revenues versus a current of 20.3. That increase may seem a bit alarming. We're comfortable, though, that we're still on target. The reason being, as you all recall, the state did not pass a budget last year until late in December. We didn't receive our budget from DPI, Department of Public Instruction, until January. So as a result, January and February wage increases, etc., were retroactive back to July 1. So we expect to see the state numbers come in line in the third quarter of this fiscal year. Next, we have our federal funds. Previous year spending, $7.4 million, which I might add is typically our total annual federal budget. But this is inflated, of course, due to ESSER, the elementary and secondary schools emergency relief funding. This year, at this point in time, we're at $5 million. We rank in federal spending of ESSER funds out of 115 school districts in the state of North Carolina. Through October, we ranked 19th in spending, which puts us in the top percentile of ESSER utilization. We've met and have expended all of our ESSER funds that were due to be spent by September of this year. We have another deadline of September 23 for ESSER funding, and then a final deadline of September of 2024. We've spent 71% of those funds to this point, so we are on track to utilize 100% of our ESSER funding.
What's your dollar amount that's left in ESSER?
Our total allocation of ESSER funds was just over $45 million. We have about $12 million remaining at this point in time. The bulk of that has been spent on air quality improvement projects via the HVAC systems and things of that nature, as well as a really concerted effort to tutors and summer school programs in order to address learning loss for our students. Next, our local funding, of course, provided by you, the county commissioners. That's relatively flat year to year, as you all will recall, and we appreciate it very much. Our increase in funds from you all for this fiscal year is $253,803, and that's additional funding for nurses. Next line is school nurses, and as you can see, quarter to quarter, it is an increase, and that's due to you picking up fully 12 nursing positions. At this point in time, we have 25 school nurses in our system. That has been increased significantly during COVID. We wanted to have a nurse per school to address issues as they would arise. That funding consists of 12 school nurses funded by you, the commissioners. We have another 1.4 positions funded through the SNFI grant, which is a North Carolina Department of Human Services recurring grant each year that we receive. That's, again, $100,000. At this point, it's funding about 1.4 positions. We were funding 11 of those additional nurses from ESSER funds. That's now at 9.6. Margaret and I have had discussions, and as well as communications with Mr. Scalise with the Health Department. We were awarded another North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services non-recurring grant using state COVID funds in the amount of $168,001. So what we did is we moved part of those nurses, 2 nurses, out of ESSER funds, relieving that budget for that to be reallocated for other purposes, and the intentions are to fund those 2 nurses from this new Department of Health and Human Services funding stream. And you, the county, will be acting as a pass-through agent for those funds to draw down and to pay for those 2 positions. Next, we have charter schools. Typically, the first quarter, the number's negligible. As you know, school doesn't start until August, so second and third quarters, and even the fourth are our strong quarters when that comes into play. As you can see, looking over at the annual numbers, we do once again this year anticipate an increase in charter schools funding, or us funding the charter schools. We do have 1 new charter school this year to the system, Oak Hill Charter School in Caldwell County, of which we have children attending from Burke. Next, fines and forfeitures. It's slightly under what it was last quarter, but thankfully has returned. Well, I don't know. It depends on your perspective, I assume. I say thankfully from our perspective, it's returned to pre-COVID numbers. As you know, court operations were paused and what have you at certain points during COVID, which significantly impacted that funding stream for the school system. So that has been restored. Next is school receivables, which is negligible. Next, special revenues. You can see it's a slight decrease. Special revenues, that's what we in the school system call Fund 8. That's where all other non-federal, non-state programs operate.
Keith, can you speak to the 53.8 on receivables, current receivables?
It's just a matter of timing of when the schools, we have a system in place where at the central office, We front fund a lot of purchases for the schools, and then we invoice the schools, and they in turn repay the central office, and it's just a timing issue. I mean, as you can see from historical numbers, 14.9, 12 million, 12,000 was our previous year and our forecast for the year. So that number fluctuates. That's not a number that will increase significantly. Actually, by the end of the year, it should be somewhere down around $10,000, $12,000. That's just, again, a matter of when the schools repay us. In our next slide, specifically the local funding, I'll draw your attention to the 21-22 column that says, on your copy it's unaudited. On my copy now it is audited number. It is a final number. Your slide reflects a $231,000 usage of fund balance. Our audited numbers, actually, we used $170,801 of fund balance last year, with our original budget predicted or forecasted to have used $136,000. As I've alluded to in past meetings, what's happened there, and it's evident if you look at the instructional support line item, is that we were significantly impacted on facilities upkeep due to the price of materials to maintain school buildings. That's had a significant impact on our budget. We forecasted this year to utilize $465,000 in fund balance. Through the first quarter, we've used $108,000. So we feel comfortable and we feel that we're on target to hit that original forecast of $465,000 of fund balance.
Keith, what's your balance on that?
About $3.2 million of fund balance.
3.2?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. Gentlemen, any other questions, comments?
And DPI didn't send you any extra money to make up for the extra charges and fuel and all that good stuff this year?
We have a report due next week for our transportation operations and our driver's ed operations, and they are assessing and looking at fuel cost and how it's impacting our budgets. But to this point in time, there has been no increase funding to compensate for fuel prices whatsoever. But we're hopeful and anticipate that maybe something will be coming, since they have requested that reporting for those two programs.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, any other questions or comments for Keith? All right, Keith. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Without objection, gentlemen, this item will remain on the consent agenda. This brings us to item number 2, Board of Commissioner 2023 Commission appointments. Gentlemen, you saw in your notes, there are approximately 20-plus boards that one of us serves on. So we try to divvy those up in an equitable fashion. And so, as you can see, and there's other boards that aren't reflected on here, because I'm on VETIC, and then I'll be on, what is it, Johnny? The risk management team down in Raleigh as well. Commissioner Abley was on that. And so there's several that won't reflect on here. But as you can see, do y'all have any questions about any of the assignments? All right, gentlemen, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Resolution adopting a code of ethics. Gentlemen, had a chance to review those. Any questions, comments? All right, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Adoption of rules of procedure for 2023. Gentlemen, you've had those sent out prior and had a chance to review. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make one comment for just a second in relation to public comments. I'm trying to find what page that's on. Currently, we have a requirement that those wishing to make public comments must, prior to the meeting, fill out a card, a comment card, which I'm fine with that, but occasionally we have someone who will roll into the meeting and not understand that rule or know about it. I would like for us to consider some language there that might allow for them to speak, or at least maybe we publish at least 5 minutes before the meeting something on the monitors that says if you wish to speak, you must fill out a card or something, so that we don't get caught with somebody saying, well, I didn't know I had to do that and I want to speak. Anybody got any thoughts on that? Or
Well, we can put in specific language, or you can leave it like I did several months ago. A gentleman came in later that we all know, and he wanted the opportunity to speak, and obviously I wasn't aware of that requirement, and I just used discretion as chairman to do that. And we can leave that as discretion of the chairman, or we can put some specific language in there. Okay?
In case you don't know, I've been helping folks to pre-register. So we have a section on the website, on the commissioners page, where they can click on a link that will actually send an email to me. They can ask to pre-register to try to make things a little more modern and helpful to citizens that want to speak. But I'm happy to amend or modify whatever you would like.
maybe just a statement in the rules that say that the chair has the latitude to allow a speaker to speak without having presented a card, might be sufficient. Or and I think too, Madam Clerk, I haven't looked at your statement on the website. I think it might behoove us to make it clear that, you know, if you're the first person that comes out the gate with that request, does not necessarily mean you're going to be the first person that speaks, so that we don't get caught with having to try to wrangle folks who think, well, I submitted mine at 1:02 and I should be number one to speak tonight. And I think the chairman ought to have the latitude to direct the speakers.
Any objection to that, gentlemen? Just have Kate put in some language with given discretion. Actually, you know, JR interpreted that the chairman has that discretion already, but it wouldn't hurt to spell it out.
That's all I have, sir.
All right. Anything else, any further instruction we need, Madam Clerk? With that addition, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That brings us to item number 5, resolution establishing Board of Commissioners 2023 meeting schedule. Gentlemen, you will notice that in February, we usually, obviously, pre-agenda is first Tuesday and regular agenda is the third Tuesday, but Commissioner Carswell and I, actually the first from Burke County, have been accepted into the School of Government at Chapel Hill, the Advanced Leadership Corps. We got the responses here about 2 weeks ago, so that is the first week of February, so we will not be in attendance. So we were looking at moving that month's meetings to the second and fourth Tuesday. Any objections to that? And then I noticed Kay has a question mark. Our July pre-agenda meeting date is tentatively scheduled for what date is it now? You have that available?
The 3rd, July 5th.
July 5th. So, and what I wanted to poll and see if anybody is going to be out of town that week, is it going to pose a problem? Do we need to move that meeting for any reason? And I'm fine with it myself, but I didn't know. I want to give y'all an opportunity to speak to it if there was going to be a conflict. Either everybody's looking up their calendars or I'm hearing no conflicts. Okay. How about staff? Will be fine? Not you. I was going to say, Brian, you don't count, Brian. I got a feeling you won't be here July 5th. Okay. Well, gentlemen, we'll leave it, that'll remain on the 5th. We'll move those two meeting dates in February. And we will schedule a budget retreat soon. Not today, but we will do that soon. Madam Clerk, unless you,
Before the 20th or after?
what's your pleasure?
Well, there's a provision with blanks in it, so I can either take it out if it's going to be later.
I'd say later.
I believe so too, so later.
Take it out.
Any further direction? We good? All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 6, reappointments to Blue Ridge Community Action, presented by Madam Clerk.
Oh, one more thing on the 2023 meeting schedule. That resolution does not include any budget meeting dates. All right, with regard to reappointments to the Blue Ridge Community Action, this is a request to reappoint Michael Cloy, seat number 1, Barbara Myers, seat number 2, and James Smith, seat number 3, to the Blue Ridge Community Development Board of Directors for 2-year terms ending December 15, 2024. And all these members are in good standing.
Gentlemen, questions? Comments? And without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 7, appointment to the Burke County Board of Adjustment. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to appoint Tommy Craig to seat number 2 on the Burke County Board of Adjustment to complete the remainder of a 3-year term ending September 30th, 2024, and that is representing the East.
Gentlemen, any questions or comments on this item? Without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. We'll move on to item number 8, Madam Clerk, reappointments to the EMS Peer Review Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to reappoint Leonora Mahoney, seat number 2, nurse, April Traxler, seat number 4, Fry Medical Center, Mike Willis, seat 5, emergency management, and Alan Hudson, seat 8, first responder south, to the EMS Peer Review Committee to complete the remainder of 2-year terms ending November 15th, 2024.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions, comments on this item? If not, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That'll bring us to item number 9, Madam Clerk, reappointments to the Board of E&R.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to reappoint Betty Greer, seat number 1, to the Board of Equalization and Review for a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2025.
Gentlemen, questions, comments on this item? If not, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Item number 10, reappointments to the Board of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to reappoint Dr. Anthony Frank, physician, seat number 4, Dr. Joel Welsh, engineer, seat 8, and Gwen Stevens, at-large, seat 11, to the Board of Health for 3-year terms ending December 31st, 2025, and to remove Melinda Zimmerman and Dr. Walrich from the official roster for the Board of Health and thank them for their service to the community.
Gentlemen, any questions or comments on this item? If not, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. We'll move on to item number 11, Madam Clerk, removals from JCPC.
Thank you. I'm very happy to present on behalf of A.J. Coutu, the JCPC administrator. She could not be here today. This is a request to remove Dorian Palmer and Jeffrey Beck from the JCPC council and thank them for their service to the community. The removals are for attendance issues.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? If not, without objection, this item will remain on the agenda. Item number 12, reappointments to Tourism Development Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to reappoint Samantha Reed, seat number 4, Collectors of Occupancy Tax for Hotels and Motels, Diane Ryle, seat number 6, Travel and Tourism at Large, and Mitch Curse, seat number 8, Collectors of Occupancy Tax, Hotel Motels, to the Tourism Development Authority for 2-year terms ending December 31st, 2024, and to reappoint Scott Mulvey as chairman of the TDA for 2023.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda, and Madam Clerk, you may rest.
Thank you.
This will bring us to item number 13, Community Development Canoe Creek Stream Restoration Grant presented by Alan Glines.
Thank you, Commissioners. Foothills Conservancy of North Carolina, in partnership with Catawba Riverkeeper and the Wildlands Engineering, along with grant support from Burke County, is seeking to restore a portion of Canoe Creek that flows within the boundaries of the Oak Hill Community Park and Forest. Now, if you don't know, the Oak Hill Community Park and Forest is about 650-acre tract of land that has been purchased and is being developed by Foothills Conservancy. They noticed an opportunity to restore Canoe Creek, which has been damaged over, many generations through the type of agriculture that was done there. They'd like to reclaim those stream banks and try to restore them into a natural flow as a wetland type of riparian feature. And they're asking Burke County's help to sort of manage the grant part. The grant through, Department of Environmental Quality Water Resources Development Grant Program, it's a mouthful. Only cities and counties are eligible to apply, so they're going to try to apply for the full amount for the request, is $200,000, and they're going to work towards the grant match. So they allow a 50-50 match. They're also going to try to apply for a second grant, and this would be North Carolina Land and Water Fund for another $200,000. They can apply for that on their own. What they would do is write the actual grant itself to be submitted by Burke County in the portal. They would, if successful, they would manage the construction plans, submit the necessary permits, and oversee the construction when it would happen. The county would submit the grant through the DEQ. We would actually provide my understanding is provide the actual construction bidding process from a public bid standpoint, so we would handle that. And then we would help with that reimbursement when the work's complete. I know our friends with Foothills are here, and I don't know if they want to add or share anything else about the project.
Thanks so much for having us, Commissioners.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, my name is Michael Gaffney. I'm the Conservation Program Associate with Foothills Conservancy. I handle restoration projects, and I also handle land acquisition projects as well.
Okay.
So the project, we've just finished our budget for this project, and we think it's going to be roughly $530,000. And we're planning to apply for the full $200,000 through the the Division of Water Resources, and then we'll do $300,000 through the Land and Water Fund, and the extra $30,000 will be matched through Foothills Conservancy and Catawba Riverkeeper, along with some other organizations. And in the current scheme of the process, we'll actually be able to write the grant and submit it ourselves. The submittal process isn't even through the DEQ portal, it's through an Excel sheet that we simply send in by email. So we'll handle most of the grant writing. And we anticipate that the real heavy lifting from the county will be funneling the funds to us. That's the anticipated work that the county will have to do.
Gentlemen, questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, this question will go to Margaret. What's your thoughts, Margaret? Do we have staff to manage that, and what will our cost ultimately be?
Yes, sir. I think some of that would need addressed in the memo of agreement that's done to ensure that the match is provided by other parties as the board prefers or would like. If the board wants to provide some match, obviously that's your pleasure. But right now, I think the plan is for the county not to have funds involved. And I've spoken with our senior fiscal analyst, and she is able to assist with the filing of the grant and the paperwork and things. We feel we can do that part. Once we know the match, we'll know how it will affect our books, whether it will create a single audit situation or not, which could entail additional costs to the county from our audit perspective.
So would this also, Mr. Attorney, would you review these documents to assure that we don't have other obligation in this matter?
I haven't seen them, but I will be glad to review them. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, are we considering this a pass-through, Margaret? Is that what we technically look at some things as a pass-through? So are we considering this a pass-through?
It sounds like it would predominantly be. Either way, it affects the audit the same.
Okay.
If 500,000 in state dollars passes through, that does create a single audit situation. Depending on where the grant sources are, it could change that sum. The DEQ grant would be required to be in our audit.
So according to what the young man has said here, there's probably going to be 500,000 passing through, so that would cause us to have to make a report, and that would cost us money to do that, right, through auditors?
That would be up to the auditors whether it was an additional charge, depending on how many single audits we have during the fiscal year it hits.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, gentlemen? Yes, sir.
I do have one quick question concerning the match. I know typically when you submit the grant, there's a commitment on match when it goes in order for it to be considered. Is that the case here?
When we write the Land and Water Fund grant, which is due February 19th, we will tell them that we have applied for the Division of Water Resources grant, but that we have not yet received it. So
Okay.
they'll evaluate it based on the notion that we will receive the funds.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, let me ask one more. I don't want to dive into the weeds on this, but Canoe Creek, tell me very quickly about it while we're cleaning it up.
It's about 1.2 miles of creek. It flows into the Catawba River, and as our Catawba River keeper over here has seen very clearly, when that creek flows into the Catawba River, it muddies up the waters tremendously, which means that the stream is in really poor health. And from going over to the stream itself and walking it, you can see that it's not supporting flow as well as it should be. It's not supporting biodiversity as well as it should be. And it's not in nearly as good shape as we think we can make it after a restoration project.
So you're going to restore the banks, riprap, whatever it takes, maybe?
Yes, the idea, right now the stream is really incised, sort of like a canyon, and we want to go in, we'll use heavy machinery to regrade the banks so that when the stream flows really high, the water will spread out more evenly. This is good for species. This is also good, we believe, for mitigating downstream flood issues as well. So we're hoping that this will also be a flood mitigation benefit for the community.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? I will say I'm very familiar with 126 going out there. That stream does need some restoration. And I know exactly what you're talking about as far as muddying the waters downstream. I canoe a lot. And so you can see that where it comes in. And so, I think it's a great project and
Thank you very much.
glad we could support it.
Great.
Any other questions, comments, gentlemen? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Well, there being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. This will move us to Community Development Department organization.
Thank you, Commissioners. The Community Development Department would like to reclassify 2 existing positions within the department. The reclassifications, if approved, would have the benefit of providing an added level of management within the department and an improved career path for planning staff who have the expertise and are taking on new duties. The proposed changes, if approved, would be revenue neutral to the budget. The first reclassification would be for Assistant Director for Community Development. It's helpful to have formally develop this position within the department. We've sort of operated under a an assistant director through the operations manager for quite some time. And as you well know, Shane Prisby had that role in the past. Over time, the duties of the operation manager went from trail planning work, and it kept that up, but also evolved and were similar to what would be appropriate for an assistant director. Formalizing this position will provide greater cover for department operations and assure continuation of department functions should the director be unavailable. That position right now is a pay grade 26. If the assistant director role was approved, the pay grade would become a 31, which is in line with the pay ranges for benchmark communities and other assistant directors within Burke County. If the reclassification is approved, the position of operations manager would be removed from the job classification table. Bradley Kirkley, zoning administrator, is working as the interim operations manager and would move into this assistant director position if approved. Bradley has been employed with Burke County for 16 years. He is known to the county and will be an asset in this role. The second reclassification request is to develop a new Planner 2 position within community development. Currently, we have a planner position and we have a senior planner position. To improve career path options for staff, the second tier of Planner 2 is something someone could work towards as their experience and expertise expands. Built into a Planner 2 description is the management of a specific program or component of work for community development department. So they would manage some component of the work we do in the office. Having tiered levels for planning positions is customary in many planning departments in North Carolina, especially places I've worked in the past. The proposed pay grade would be 27, which is a couple steps higher than the planner position, but still lower than the senior planner. On our staff, we're lucky to have Jennifer Forney, who is currently the planner and who would be recommended for this promotion, and now manages currently the activities of the permit center for this whole year since one of our other colleagues left our employment. Jennifer has been employed with Burke County for almost 20 years. She is already performing well in this new leadership role for her. The two positions, as I said, would be have a revenue neutral effect on the budget, and staff is asking that these changes be effective the next pay period as allowed within December or January as that works out. And there's no budgetary effect because we would be using lapse funds. It's kind of an overlap fund between the current budget, and that's what we're requesting.
Gentlemen, you've heard Alan. Questions, comments? Yes, sir. Well, I will say, Jennifer's obviously done a tremendous job for us, and Bradley has too for years, so I don't have a problem with this. I guess my only question is, when are we going to have just a trail specialist?
Just a trail specialist?
Because trails, that's what we get asked about. And, I see Planner 1 trail specialist up there. Where do we stand with that?
I want to, once this is resolved, I would put out a request for the job in January to try to get that person in here as soon as possible. I just needed to figure out if this was approved, what I'm advertising for and who's going to be doing what. Because the current role has been definitely, operations manager was also the trail manager, and I needed to bring that to you all.
So that position, when we hire, we're not going to bleed other responsibilities into that. We're going to say, you go do the trails.
That's what I hope to do. And as a planning director, and if we have the assistant director role, we'll support the trails in different ways. I might not be out there with a shovel or walking the route, but I can help with grants or help with paperwork and other kind of that kind of work to help facilitate the trail planner, because they'll need some help. It's a big role to take on.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. I just want to make sure it's more of a dedicated role.
Yes,
than
sir.
trying to bleed into trying to have all these different responsibilities when pressure's been on really just, the completion of the trail. When is that? What does it look like? Obviously we had a setback with that one grant. That's uncontrollable. But on the other hand, if we have somebody dedicated that's out there beating the ground every day and doesn't have to worry about 4 other things,
Correct.
I think it would absolutely move up the timeline. So anyway, any other questions, comments, gentlemen?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Alan, we typically do reclassifications, at budget time. Is there urgency to do the reclassifications at this period of time? Not that I'm opposed to it, but I need to understand why you're doing it now. Is it hopefully for not retention purposes? But give me a reason why you decided you want to do this now.
Well, the change with losing our key staff member colleague so early in the budget year required me to kind of rethink how we're doing our workflow and how to make it sustainable so folks know what their role is and also can stay put and want to be in that role. So otherwise we'd have to wait for 10 to 11 months through the budget process to really have it resolved. And so I didn't want to do that. I think we need to move this along because we really can't afford to wait. We've got a big social contract, about the trails. We want to keep it going. So
in the end, what do you gain from this for you? Is it for you or is it just, I'm trying to kind of nail down here and I'm not doing a good job asking the question.
well, having an assistant director in the department is that depth that we need in the department. We've operated with an assistant director. It's just the person wasn't in that role officially. So this would make that an official position within community development.
And so we have lap salary money to take care of for the rest of the year.
Correct.
Then you'd have to review that again next budget.
It would follow the normal budget process beginning in February. And
So these 2 positions, Alan, that show vacant, they're already existing positions. Is that correct?
yes,
Okay, so
they're in the budget.
they're already in the budget,
Yeah,
but they're not filled at the moment.
they're not filled at the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, the trail planner position.
Gentlemen, any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Ellen, thank you. Without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. That'll bring us to general services, roofing projects. Mr. Mark Delahunt, how are you, sir?
Good. Other than the knot on my head, I'm doing good. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Several roofing projects were included in the last budget. Among those approved projects were new roofs for the Avery Building, the Register of Deeds, and the General Services Building. Since July of this year, we've discovered a number of leaks at the Sheriff's Office, and I am therefore requesting permission to use the funds that were approved for the General Services Building on a new roof for the Sheriff's Office. The General Services Building seems to be holding out pretty good. But additionally, due to the amounts of these bids, the contracts for both the Register of Deeds and the Sheriff's Office will require board approval in order to be executed. And with that said, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Gentlemen, questions, comments for Mark? All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, gentlemen, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Moving on to item number 16, approval of Dogwood Trust Grant, Harm Reduction in Health, presented by our good friend Danny Scalise.
Afternoon, Commissioners. Congratulations, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Burns. I wasn't here earlier. I apologize. So we applied for a grant from the Dogwood Health Trust in order to continue our partnership with Olive Branch Ministries. With me today is Reverend Michelle Mathis. She is the Executive Director. She is also a nationally known expert on this issue, so I'm glad to have such a partner here in the community. We're going to focus on addressing the social determinants of health through harm reduction and extended health equity to high-risk populations, including inmates, those that are just released, unhoused persons, and persons who use drugs. On top of that, we'll also have 3 community forums where we will be soliciting input from the community and giving education about what we're doing and how we're doing it. In your packet, I believe you have a copy of the grant agreement where we would be giving reporting to the Dogwood Health Trust, and of course, we would make those available for the public to see as well.
Gentlemen, questions or comments for Nanny?
This grant has to be run through the health department, correct?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, gentlemen? If not, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda.
Thank you for your time, Commissioners.
Thank you, sir. That moves us to item number 17, approval of contract for NeoGov software. This will be presented by our friend Lorinda Johnson, our HR Director.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. For the sake of the new commissioners, NeoGov software is a software that is used by the entire state of North Carolina and most counties our size and greater. It helps us automate the receipt, processing, and tracking of employment applications and resumes. It adds a great benefit to us of a web-based employment application, which is my favorite part, where people can actually apply for a job by a telephone. For example, sitting with their cell phone, apply for a job, make it way easier for applicants to apply. They only have to fill out a NeoGov profile one time, no matter what government agency that they're applying for. And by simply changing the title and position number on that application, they can easily apply for future opportunities or multiple openings with us as well. Commissioners have already approved the first year's expense, which is $31,671.95. You already approved that for this fiscal year. We haven't spent it yet. And we're asking, because of my spending limit, we're asking for approval for the entire 3-year contract, which totals $100,469.35 over the 3-year period.
Gentlemen, questions, comments for Lorinda?
I will say that this is a system I'm very knowledgeable of, and that we use it at the college, actually at Western Piedmont and CVCC, and it's solid.
You find it easy to use and adapt?
Very easy, very easy.
One more comment. The tech support comes from NeoGov, not from our own IT department, so that doesn't burden our own IT support group in maintaining the, actually implementing it and maintaining it after it's implemented.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to lend my support also to NeoGov in the association. There are many counties that, as Randy said, this is just a phenomenal system to use. It's easy to use. People really like it, so I think this is money that will be well spent on a system that would help all of us out.
Gentlemen, any other questions, comments? Lorinda, thank you. There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. This will bring us to our sheriff, new provider for inmate meals, presented by Sheriff Huntsman. How are you, sir?
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, gentlemen. The current contract for the food service provider for the Burke County Jail is set to expire December 31st. We solicited for bids, and the bids closed November 4th. There was two companies that filed bids, and both bids were received, and Summit Food Services was a recommended vendor.
Gentlemen, questions, comments?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Was Aramark not doing well, or was it just the fact that we had to put it out to bids to see if anybody else wanted it?
No, sir, we needed a new food service provider. We needed a new food service provider.
So I can assume from that Aramark wasn't doing too well, right?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir.
How does this quote compare to what we've been paying, Sheriff?
You know, this bid works off of a sliding scale. The more inmates that you have, the cheaper the meals are. And I think that it is a little bit more than what we were paying for meals, but I think just having people to show up and prepare meals so that our detention officers do not have to do that with the duties that they already have is, I think we got to provide meals for our inmates.
Any other questions, comments? Just out of curiosity, where we generally, our population, where has it generally been as of
It's up or
late?
down around 130 right now.
130? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments, gentlemen? All right, thank you, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. This brings us to Tax Department Tax Collection Report for November 2022, presented by Dawn Hutchins. There she is, hiding in the back.
Good afternoon, members of the board. On the property taxes, we have collected $35,007,749.67 with a balance to collect of $10,792,250.33, which is about where we should be. Mr. Bridgers was unable to get the motor vehicle totals. The state's been having issues with their system. I'm not sure what that's all about, but we've not been able to get that. And on the delinquent taxes, we collected $389,161.52 with the balance to collect of $310,838.48. And late list penalties, we've collected $112,626.37 with the balance of $202,370.363.
Gentlemen, questions, comments? All right, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Release refund report for November 2022.
On the net releases, we released $1,323.92, but we rebilled $550.44, and we had no refund amount.
Thank you. Gentlemen, questions, comments? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you. This brings us to item number 21, resolution updating the plat review officers for Morganton and Burke County, presented by Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You should have a handout at your seats for this item. This is a request to appoint Wendy Smith, the new Development and Design Director at the City of Morganton, as a plat review officer, and to remove the former Development and Design Director, Philip Luckadoo, as a plat review officer. And it's also an opportunity to appoint Alan Glines and Bradley Kirkley as review officers for the county, just so that they have somebody that can sign plats in the office at all times.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Gentlemen, questions, comments? There being none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, gentlemen, this brings us to section 6, items for decision. Finance, signature cards update. Margaret Pierce.
With the retirements and people trying to not do their job anymore, we have to replace signatures on our signature cards. County Manager Steen is on all signature cards, and Deputy Sheriff Captain Greg Huntley with the sheriff is on the inmate trust account for releasing funds for inmates and he is also retiring this month. So we need to go ahead and make appointments for all of those. Per statute, we need 2 persons on each signatory. We will be asking that you remove Kenneth B. Steen and Greg Huntley from those signature cards effective with their retirement dates, and reappoint signers for each.
Gentlemen, questions, comments for Margaret? All right, there being none, this item will remain on items for decision. That brings us to lease extension, Jonas Ridge Convenience Site, Mark Delahunt. Lucky, you get to come up twice.
Yeah, lucky me, huh? Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm still waiting up for a response from the property owner on this, so I'm asking that this item be removed from the agenda till such time that I can have something in hand for review.
Gentlemen, any questions or comments?
I do. I've slept. What are we waiting on?
The property owner, I guess, is elderly, and I've reached out to a family member who's actually an attorney and is working with her mother on seeing what terms would be agreeable, at which time we'll get something prepared for review in the county. So just a little bit of holdup, and I don't want to be pushy with them in any way because they're going to decide how much we have to pay.
Okay, got it. No further.
What length of term are we looking at for this lease? Probably no more than a year.
No, based on the contract approved for construction of the new convenience site, we'll be out by June 30th this year. So it should be the last lease we have with them. So the thing that we execute will terminate on June 30th of 2023.
Okay. Gentlemen, any other questions or comments? All right, Mark, with your recommendation, without objection, gentlemen, this item will be removed and brought back at a later date.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, but what if we do nothing?
That is an option. I assume if we do nothing at the end, when we're ready to move out, we'll just settle up with the property owner. They've been very good to work with. There's no issue anticipated, so, nothing sense of urgency.
Is our current lease good until June?
That would be a county attorney question as far as the fine print and all, but I can't remember exactly if it's, I don't believe that it is.
I believe it's expired, so we're a month-to-month renter at this point.
So do we have that provision in our existing lease?
Which kind of provision?
Month-to-month continuation?
No, that would just be under North Carolina common law.
Okay. Maybe we're just common.
Gentlemen, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Mark.
I will continue to try to reach out, though.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, that brings us to item number 3 under items for decision. Announcements of new county manager and approval of employment agreement. We will be doing that at the regular meeting, obviously. So, gentlemen, any questions or comments? Then, without objection, this item will remain on items for decision. All right, gentlemen, I would remind everyone that please submit your reports to Madam Clerk in a timely fashion so that she can send that out before our regular meeting. I would remind everyone to spay or neuter your pets, don't litter, pick up trash, and cover your loads when you're going to the landfill or convenience sites. We need to add that as well. County offices will be closed December 23rd, 26th, and 27th, and January 2nd, 2023 for the holidays. There's a Martin Luther King banquet January 14th, Saturday at 5:30 p.m., Morgan Community House. I would ask everyone to try to attend and support, and tickets are $40 each. Gentlemen, are there any other discussion items to be brought before the board?
Are we still on for the parade tomorrow, rain or shine?
As far as we know, we'll let you know if we receive a cancellation.
If it's raining hard enough, I say we get in the TDA trolley. I've done that before, and it is warm. And so if you won't be warm and dry, we'll just kind of probably have to play this by ear.
I was just thinking if we all tried to get into that Cadillac, no offense to the newest commissioner who is about 7 foot tall, that makes it a little.
He's sitting in the front seat.
Little bit more difficult. Huh?
And so that is a good point, gentlemen, that the parade's at 6. And so if you have any questions on where to meet, just contact Kay. She'll, as always, point you in the right direction. Gentlemen, any other discussion items? All right. I'll accept a motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you, Commissioner Burns. Signify with raised hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. Meeting number 2. Scott, are we good? All right. Gentlemen, welcome everyone to the Burke County Board of Commissioners special meeting for Monday, December 5th, 2022 at 4:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, we have all 5 commissioners in attendance, our county finance officer, our county manager, and our county attorney. I remind everyone to please silence their mobile devices, and we don't have anybody come into the microphone to speak, so I won't bother with that. Gentlemen, that'll move us to item number 2, approval of the agenda. Gentlemen, you've seen the agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve the agenda?
Thank you, Commissioner Carr as well. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That is 5-0, Madam Clerk. There is a need to go in a closed session, so we will need a motion to go in a closed session to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential, to discuss threatened or pending litigation, to preserve the attorney-client privilege, to discuss economic development matters, discuss contractual matters, land acquisition, and discuss personnel matters as authorized by NCGS 143-318.11A 3, 4, 5, and 6. Further, invite the Human Resource Director and the Local Health Director to join the board in closed session, along with our county attorney.
Motion to go in closed session?
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. That is 5-0. Gentlemen, we'll go to closed session. Gentlemen, we've had a proper motion to come out of closed session. Gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I would propose we adjourn.
No, we can't do that yet.
Okay.
It's been a long meeting.
Go for it.
We have business to do. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve a salary of 12% above the midpoint for a New Burke County Health Department Director of Nursing candidate.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. All right, gentlemen, last order of business, just due to some unforeseen circumstances, I will make the public aware at this point that we do have a signed contract with a new county manager that we will be voting on formally on the 20th, but due to unforeseen circumstances, that gentleman, it's going to be public anyway, so his name's Brian Epley, and we are absolutely excited to have him on board very soon. And like I said, we weren't planning on announcing it, but due to unforeseen circumstances, stuff happens. So, gentlemen, any other questions, comments, anything else to come before the board? Commissioner Smith?
Yes, sir. I'd just like to thank Mr. Carswell, Mr. Britton, Mr. Moley, you, Ms. Drone, and Mr. Simpson, everybody that's making Mr. Burns and me feel at home. And I think we're going to have a real good working relationship. I look forward to working with each one of you quality people.
Absolutely. Our sentiments are the same as well. So we're excited to have you on board and appreciate those comments. Gentlemen, anything else? If not, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor signify with uplifted hand.